But nevertheless, I'm very happy to introduce Katja Geyer from Lufthansa Industrial Services, where she will say what it is. So it's not about flying planes, apparently. I'm really happy to see what it's about. But she will talk about how to achieve business excellence, and she's an agile manager, as I said in the beginning. So I'm really thinking is about how we work together and what methods to use to work efficiently in a new working world. And I think this will be very worthwhile and a great end point of our so far really great conference. Thank you for being here, for taking the time and for preparing the talk. And with that, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, actually I've been asked several times today, so Lufthansa, why are you here? What have you to do with AI? Just a few words to me and to my company. So first of all, thanks for having me here and giving that talk. And hopefully you're still awake and eager to learn something. Explicitly not about methods and frameworks, but about mechanisms for leadership. So I'm Katja Geyer from Lufthansa Industry Solutions, and Lufthansa Industry Solutions is a company from the Lufthansa Group, and we do business consulting, and we also provide innovative business and IT solutions and services to a lot of different companies and customers. So of course our main customer is the Lufthansa Group itself, but also we have a lot of external customers. And mainly this is where I was busy the last years with a lot of big customers from different industries, mainly from automotive, but also from logistics or manufacturing. And we also have customers in the retail sector, environment, and so on and so on. And in my current role, I'm an Agile Transformation Manager. So I mainly focus right now on strategic consulting, management consulting in terms of enterprise-wide transformations, lean agile transformations, but also digital transformations. And I have worked in several roles in the system as a Scrum Master. That's where I started my Agile career. As a release train engineer or as an agile coach, and in the past years mainly as a safe practice consultant and as a management consultant, and towards setting up digital product organizations or agile project setups. My colleagues also call me the SAFe Queen, and for those who are familiar with that, SAFe is the Scaled Agile Framework. It's currently the most popular framework for scaling agility to company level. And I'm very deep into this method, and I know every detail about the framework. But I recently read a book, a fantastic book that completely changed my view on transformation and on methods and frameworks and implementing them. And this is what this talk is about. So it's more about leadership and not so much about methods and frameworks. According to a global executive survey, 50% of executives are convinced that technology will be a key changer for them in the next 3 years. But 75% underestimate the impact on organizations. And I recently gave a talk about that topic, that whenever we have a digitalization or technology initiative, nowadays we also have a change project. Because technology really has a massive impact on the way we work, how we collaborate. Even if we just introduce a new tool, we always change also the processes, the structures, the collaboration models. So whenever we have a technology project, and not only when we talk about AI, but any kind of digitalization or automation or technology initiative, people need to learn new skills. Their jobs are slightly changing. So whatever we do with technology, there is always a little bit of change in it. And companies already, and also my customers, that's clear for them. So they started to react on that already. And many organizations are quite clear on what they want to change or what they want to achieve. So In organizations and also with my customers, we talk a lot about what we want to achieve. And I think you know all of these things, you have heard them, and maybe they are also written already in your strategy papers or are integrated in the why story or your guiding principles or whatever you have to envision the future state of your organization. And that's all right. So I don't say that methods and frameworks are a bad thing, but this is not where we start. Because when I ask my customers, and how do you want to achieve that? Then there is only one answer. Oh, we do a transformation. Okay, cool. I like transformation. I'm an agile coach. So, but what is it exactly that you want to transform and towards which goal? And then the answers already start to become a bit fuzzy. So, well, yeah, the organization, the people in it, the way we work. So what is it actually that you want to transform? And then when I ask the question, and how do you want to get there? So what are the first steps? Then there are no answers anymore. So what we really have to change from my point of view is only one thing. It's leadership. Because organizations are more or less nothing more than a reflection of their decision-making structures. And when we really want to transform our organization, we have to transform the way how we take decisions. And also progress and transformation can only be seen when we continuously take decisions towards the future state or the target picture that we want to achieve. And especially when we talk about lean agile transformation, the current State of Agile report states the top 8 challenges for organizations to scale agility from the team to enterprise level. And from my point of view, the top 8 challenges, they can be completely tied closely to leadership to 100%. To give you some examples, one of the top reasons is everything is siloed, or we don't have clear priorities. We have a lack of strategic direction. Our teams are not empowered to be self-organized. Leadership doesn't understand agile or is not willing to support us, and they put roadblocks up knowingly or unknowingly. Business teams are not involved or don't want to collaborate. So all of these things are leadership issues in the end. And especially when we talk about agility, we are always in complex environments because that is why we need agility. We want to have effectiveness because we don't know really what the result should be or which target we want to achieve. So in complex environments, it's very important that we create psychological safety for the teams. Because psychological safety is a precondition for trust and inclusion and participation of people within a group or a social system. And psychologically secure teams build up resilience, tolerate uncertainty, and can establish a speak-up culture. And that is it, what you really want to achieve in your organization, to leverage the full potential of the skilled people you currently have, the potential of knowledge workers. And by the way, a lack of leadership or even poor leadership is really expensive. So we calculated that about 26 times higher the costs are for poor leadership rather than when you would invest this money into sustainable development programs and continuous training and learning. And how does this calculation consist? So the deficient staffing of a manager is or causes 15 times higher follow-up costs than actually his annual salary. And we know from another study that 37% of employees quit just because of their manager, because of the inadequate leadership behavior. We also know that 70% of the fluctuation we see in our employees' engagement, motivation, or commitment can be traced back to leadership behavior. So you always are a role model as well as a leader. and you exemplify the behaviors you want to see in your team. And from my experience, a lot of leaders and also managers significantly underestimate their radiant power into the organization. And we also know when we have lost an employee due to leadership behavior, it's also 2.6 times more expensive until we adequately replaced that employee. So good leadership is a precious asset. You don't want to sell that. You don't want to lose that. You want to multiply that. So that is what it is all about. So this is my thesis for that talk. The key success factor for enabling transformation and also for achieving business excellence or business agility, whatever you call it, is the ability of an organization to promote more leaders, not followers, leaders. Because when we talk about followers, followers just follow the leader. And when we treat people like leaders and people like followers, we always have a gap in the level of engagement. So we need more leaders. And from my point of view, bold leadership will be the decisive competitive advantage for an enterprise to really compete in the digital age. I didn't say good leadership because I think we already have good leaders, good managers, but we need a new skill, and we call it courage or whatever name you want to give it. And that's why I think bold leadership, that is what we really need. And now I come to the point, how can we achieve that? And so it's time to meet Captain David Marquette. And this is, by the way, the book I read, and I would definitely recommend to all of you when you're interested in leadership. And it's a step-by-step approach how you can really transform a command and control structure into what David calls the leader-leader model, how to promote more leaders. And to quickly summarize the story of Captain David Marquette, I would like to borrow the words of Simon Sinek. He described the story perfectly. Captain David Marquette was a captain, a commanding officer of the US Navy, and he was in command of a nuclear-powered submarine. He already started his career when he graduated, I think, top 5 in the Naval Academy. And then at a certain point in time, he received the greatest honor you can get as a captain. He gets in command of his own ship. And he was assigned to the US Olympia, one of the best ships in the Navy fleet at that point in time, with one of the best crews. And so he started to study 1 year the US Olympia. He read every dossier, every information. He knew every screw on board, every pump, every switch, because he thought that his credibility as a leader was closely tied to his intelligence and the knowledge, and there was no doubt that he needs to know more than everybody else. That's what a lot of us think. So he not only knew everything about the ship, he also knew everything about the crew. Their names, their strengths, their weaknesses, their recommendations, everything. And then he got a phone call 2 weeks before he got into command, and they told him, we don't put you on the US Olympia, we put you on the Santa Fe. And by the way, the Santa Fe is one of the worst ship ever in the fleet, and you have a very bad crew ranking last or even close to last in every readiness measurement of the Navy you can imagine. But David Marquette is a smart guy, so he likes the challenge. He has a big ego, so he thinks, okay, I can handle that. If I have a bad ship, I have a bad crew, but I'm a good leader. If I give good orders, I will have a good ship. If I give great orders, I will have a great ship. And so he faced the challenge. And then on the first day he showed up, and immediately he starts barking orders, because this is like we have trained our leaders, run around, sound like Russell Crowe, bark orders. And he did that, and everything went fine. And on the second day, the same thing. He showed up, he starts barking orders, everything went fine. On the third day, he decided to do a drill. A drill is a mechanical training of skills in military. And as we are on a nuclear submarine, we simulated a meltdown, so we have to shut down the nuclear reactor and run the ship on batteries. And at a certain point in time, he decided to make it a bit tenser for his crew and see how they react, and so he gave a very simple order. Ahead 2/3. And right next to him, the second in command, a senior officer, stands and repeated the order, ahead 2/3. And nothing happened. And the captain steps aside of his periscope and watched at the 2 junior enlisted men driving the boat, went to them and asked, "What's the problem?" And he could see them sweating in their suits, feeling quite uncomfortable, saying, "Well, Captain, there is no 2/3, because the Santa Fe was a slightly newer ship." And then he went back to his second in command and said, "Did you know that?" "Mm-hmm." "So why then did you repeat the order?" "Because you told me to." And this is the point where Marquette realized, okay, this will be a deadly combination. So I don't have a clue about that ship, and I have a crew that is completely trained for blind obedience and compliance. And this will result in a disastrous situation where people just follow the leader. And then he completely had to re-understand what he had learned about leadership and empower his crew, because he didn't have a choice. So he cannot go out and say, "I need a new ship," or "I need a new crew." So this is what you have to deal with right now. And then just to sum it up, after 3 years, he worked with the crew, delegating decisions and empowering the crew to take the decisions themselves. They graduated with the highest ranking ever in the naval history. And here is what he does. So here's the solution, how to create leaders and also how to escape the terror of the urchin, because this really hinders our leaders, from my point of view, to work on their leadership skills, because they are so busy with all the work we currently have in the system. So first you have to accept and understand that leadership is a craft, not just a hobby. So you continuously have to train your skills, you have to evolve them, you have to practice, you have to reflect, you have to learn. Second, fix the environment, not the people. I often hear we first have to change the mindset of our people. No, that's bullshit. The mindset comes last, not first. Because to change the mindset, which is nothing else than just a set of principles and rules and values, you can only change that when you create new experience and when you behave differently. And people behave in a system like the system allows them to behave. So if you want to see a different behavior, you have to change the system first. And only management can change structures and processes. And then last but not least, a very important principle, quite popular also from that book, start to move the authority to where the information is. We have trained modern organizations to push information up to the authority, but the opposite is what we have to do now. We have to move all the authority down to where the information lives, because we have so much more information nowadays. A manager or somebody in an authority role cannot handle all that. Okay, how to exemplify these leadership mechanisms. So when we talk about the leader-leader model, I just said it, the leader-leader model is about not create followers, but leaders create more leaders. So you have to promote the right people into the right positions. And from Marquette's perspective, you need 3 things. The first is control. And control is all about making decisions. And let people make decisions not only on how they work, but also toward what end they work. And I thought about, from my experience and from all the projects I have been involved into and all the transformations where I have been part of, I try to exemplify these things for our current business organization. So I don't talk about all the mechanisms. So for every pillar, there are several mechanisms, but I try to give you some examples and some best practices you can experiment with. And by the way, when I talk about leaders, I don't only talk about the managers. I talk about everyone in your organization who can be a role model. Yeah? Not only when you have a manager grade or whatever, but also when you are an architect, when you are an IT expert or a senior consultant or whatever senior you are, you can be a role model for your colleagues and you can inspire and motivate them. So to implement mechanisms for control, for example, start with just some simple first instructions to force people to behave differently. This is, by the way, something I didn't try out yet myself. So if you have more ideas on that, I would be very curious to learn about them. In David Marquette's example, what he did, he asked his officers in command the question, so how would you recognize that people are proud to be here and to work here? And they said, oh, when we have visitors on board and the people don't look ashamed to their toes, but they look them into the eye. And so he introduced something that he called the free name rule. Whenever they have visitors on board of the Santa Fe, the people said, good morning, Commodore Kenny, stating the visitors' names, stating their own name and the name of the ship. Commodore Kenny, my name is Will Rogers, I'm the second officer in command, welcome on board Santa Fe. And I find that thought quite interesting, that you let people act first and then start thinking about their actions. So happy to experiment with that a bit more in my next customer transformation. And then one of my favorite ones, that is what I learned from my Porsche colleagues, where I was involved in their transformation about 2.5 years. And the Porsche colleagues always bring something to hate. They never have a meeting where they just talk about the problem. They always have a first draft for a solution. And they also request always first something to hate and not the perfect result. And then you have the chance, when you just have a rough first draft, then you have the chance to talk about that. And short, early conversations are very powerful to involve everybody's ideas and inspiration into the solution approach. My Lufthansa colleagues like that as well very much. So whenever I bring something to hate, that's a good, that's a cool thing. And then last but not least, don't be on sending mode all the time. Try to active listen what the people are telling you. Be curious, and curious means really don't ask questions to ask questions, be really interested in the answers and collaborate with the people. And last but not least, sometimes it's quite a good idea just to endure the silence. You don't have to provide all the time the solution already or give the answers, because we also have trained our leaders and managers to always provide answers. That's not needed anymore. Also, as a consultant, if I go to my customers and I have all the answers already, I don't learn anything about the customer. Yeah, it's more about asking questions. That are some mechanisms for control. And control means already delegating decisions. But you need one pillar for that, competence. And competence means that people must be able to take the decisions they take. So it's your part as a leader to enable the people. That they can take the decision, they won't take the decision, and they will take the decision. And here are some mechanisms for that. First of all, reflect on your decision structure. Maybe you write down for 1 week or whatever all the decisions you take, and then think about which minor decisions you can already start delegating. there are always some decisions with a minor impact, but a high visibility in your organization. And then experiment with that and learn from it. Second, make yourself aware that we learn everywhere, all the time. Try to have this learning attitude and keep it in mind, and you will always find each day a lot of opportunities where you can learn. Don't talk about failures, don't talk about blame, talk about learnings. And don't do passive briefings anymore. Don't brief, certify. Briefing means you let people come to you or set up a meeting and then tell them what you expect from them and tell them what result you want to see. But briefings are passive for everyone else except the briefer, and all the work is on your shoulders again to prepare the briefing. But the rest of the people are not involved because they don't have to prepare anything, they don't have to study anything in advance. If you do certifications, that means asking them questions and then decide together if the team is ready or not to take the decision. And then the last pillar, when we have competence, we also need organizational clarity. And clarity means that people clearly and completely understand what the organization is about and what is it that we want to achieve. This is, by the way, something I see in many transformations that we have there a big problem. Because we don't be very good in a state to enable the vision or the future that we want to see in our organization. So know your genetic code and appreciate your company's history. And that is something, the mechanism is called achieve excellence, don't just avoid errors. And that's a very interesting part if you understand the genetic code of your company. And in my example as Lufthansa, our product is that we can bring passengers safely from one destination to the other. And not only in the air travel, but also when we talk about maintenance of our aircrafts, we love, or we have to comply to checklists and procedures. And that is what we do all day. We prefer checklists and procedures over business excellence. But that's not the right thing to do for us as a consulting company. And then build a strong brand or have a clear self-identity. And that really helps, even in times of change and transformation, to have a fixed orientation point. I've seen it as well at Porsche. They absolutely know who they are and what they stand for. They are a luxurious sports car manufacturing. They have all this history in motorsports. So whatever they do it in full speed mode. And establish reward systems. So use immediate recognition to reinforce desired behavior by immediately applauding top performance or things you want to see in your company. In my previous company, we had something that was called High Five Plus. So you can assign 20 High Five Plus each year to your colleagues, and every High Five Plus that was integrated in our HR tool was worth €5. Whenever a colleague helped you or give a training or did something special, you can immediately assign him or her a High Five Plus. And then at the end of the year, you can buy something from an online shop or whatever. That's how I financed my Philips Hue system, so quite cool. Okay, to sum it up, that's the only important slide you should keep in mind from my talk. Think about the leader-leader model and think about giving control to people on taking decisions on how they work and what they want to achieve. And delegating decisions means let them make meaningful decisions. Not this kind of misunderstood shared leadership where we tell people, oh, you're fully responsible when we have a problem, but you don't responsible at all when we have to take an important decision. That's not what I mean by delegating decision authority. And keep in mind, there are two pillars. People need the technical competence to take the decisions they take and the organizational clarity so that they have a set of criteria that can rely on when they take the decision. And if this works on a nuclear-powered submarine of the US Navy, it works everywhere. So just try it out. And when you want to talk about that, I would love to do some sparring with you, gather your ideas or whatever you have learned. Call me. I'm very interested. I'm also eager to learn all the time. So, like David would say, go forth and be great leaders. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a final talk. Thank you very much. Are there questions?
Thank you. Great talk. Maybe on purpose you didn't talk about AI so much, but I'm still curious to hear your reflection on that. So obviously AI changes the equation both in the amount of knowledge and information that leaders can process, but also in access to competence and skills for employees.
Yes.
What's kind of your hunch or prediction where this will lead teams and leaders?
So when I talk about bold leadership, so I had in mind that this is something AI will never achieve. So maybe AI quite quickly will do the job better than we do. But AI, from my point of view, will never be able to inspire and motivate people and unite a team towards a common goal. And AI will also not be able to cause a fundamental, significant change in an organization to follow a new strategic direction. Yeah, so it will enable or it will ease the way how we work, but nevertheless, if you want to stay relevant in our current systems, I would say that we have to transform our leadership skills because we have to teach people, we have to inspire them, we have to coach them, and this is, from my point of view, what AI will never achieve.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the great talk. I was just spinning in my head, like if I would try to implement that at our company, for sure, in a lot of cases, I would see the pattern, a very defensive pattern that it's too important to leave. Especially in this case, it will be too important to leave the decision to others than the managers, for example. I would assume that this is a pattern which we are facing very often. And your example with the nuclear ship, just like in that case, it's literally about life safety, right? So I'm wondering, do you have some examples? How does it, even in such an environment where it's really about the highest goods, meaning the life of the people involved, how do you ensure that specific quality in the decision making is still being maintained while distributing the decision making itself on so many levels? Because I would assume that in most corporates this would be one of the defensive arguments number one against such a way.
Yes, you're right. It's the defensive argument number one. Yeah. So, oh no, not with my team. That won't work. Yeah. But my answer then always is, yeah, but you hired them. Yeah. So you might have seen something promising in them, yeah? And now you tell me, so, oh no, my team won't handle that. And then I'm back to, is that only poor leadership? Yeah. And especially if that works on the submarine. So, and yes, we talk about life-threatening events there, but what Marquette also did when he saw that he has a very bad crew, but he has no knowledge about the ship, he did the opposite of what would feel intuitively for us. Yeah, so transferring more authority to the people, and then it's also the leadership task to enable them. And if your team takes decisions and you don't like them or you think they are not good, then that's also your duty as a leadership. Then they take the wrong decisions because you don't give them the right context or the right information, or you didn't let them know what is it that we want to accomplish. Yeah, so that's when we talk about technical competence. It's your job as a manager or as a leader, and for me, we need both. Yeah, it's vice versa, it's the same. You have to enable the people. And that's why I said, and when we talk about decentralized decision making, all the people tell me all the time, yeah, but I can't delegate that because it's so important. And you need to start first with some minor decisions and learn if your team can handle that. And then you do the next step. And we have methods for that, like delegation poker, for example, yeah, where you can experiment. Set up a delegation board, talk to your team. Where are they confident that they can take the decisions? Where can you sleep in the night to give them the decision? Yeah, and then just learn. It's also an iterative process. But you have to start somewhere. Otherwise, trust will never arise.
Thanks. Other questions? Thoughts? Yes. Perfect.
It's more a thought, but I'm really happy that you also said, okay, you have to take one step at a time, because sometimes you also have people, they don't want to make decisions.
Yes.
And you have to find out, who can I delegate tasks to and who is just overwhelmed, right?
Yes. But this is often because we have educated people to that, yeah. Because when people are afraid to take over decisions, or it's the same thing with if we want to transfer responsibility. It's like knowledge. It's not sufficient if you want to transfer that. There must also be a counterpart who is willing to receive it. And it's not enough if the management says, I want to transfer responsibility or ownership or decision making or whatever you call it. You first have to understand if the counterpart is ready to receive that responsibility. And if they deny it, this is because we have trained them to just do what you've been told, don't make any failure, and if you do something wrong, then you really have a problem. Yeah? And in the end, I also see that on the higher levels, we often have the case that we don't do proper planning. And then on the team level, we have to react on all the different things. Yeah? And this is then, sometimes it goes in the wrong direction because, of course, people just react. And if you don't tell them what that is that you want to accomplish, yeah, then they have no other choice. And then tell me the managers, so yeah, but they don't take good decisions. Yeah, but it was your lack of planning that lead us to this situation. Yeah. And this is often, yeah, if you ask for responsibility, you can only transfer the duties. You always have to transfer the rights as well.
Okay, other questions? Doesn't look like. Then thank you very much.
Thank
You
you very
spoke
much.
from my heart.